All right. Hey, everybody. Looks like we're on. Happy Halloween. I hope everybody likes my virtual background here. I was lazy, didn't decide to wear a clown costume or whatever else people wear on Halloween. But thanks for coming and taking the time out of your busy days to join us. My name is Dom, Director of Sales here at Interact, and we have a really good one planned for you today. Um, just some quick housekeeping items here. Just as a reminder, you could use a QA tab on the side to submit any questions, comments. We encourage for people to write things in there, so please submit any questions you have. You can also vote as well, so if there's any specific questions that you feel, happy Halloween, everyone. Yep. Any questions that you feel that you want to be answered at the end, please write them in there and upvote them. And everyone write the chat. Yes, happy Halloween, everyone. And I guess just one little quick question for everybody here. Where's everybody calling in from? I guess not calling in or joining from. Please write it in the chat. And a little bit more about us. I know we have some customers here and maybe some not customers, but we are Interact. We are a internal communications experience platform for all of your employees to go in and get the information that they need really easily and quickly. You could also say intranet, right? But we like to think ourselves as more than an intranet. So, wow, a lot of people joined from all over the place. Snowy Wisconsin, not snowing here yet in New York, but Pittsburgh, Denver, Boston. Wow, we got people from all over the place. So thanks again for joining us. And we are joined today with a very special guest, Victoria. Victoria, do you want to say hello?
Hi, Dom. Hi. Oh, it's so wonderful to see everyone. I'm looking through the chat and seeing where everyone is from. It's wonderful to be with you. Thank you for the intro, Dom. This is wonderful. I'm so excited. And I was watching the video and I'm just so I love Halloween. And I was telling Dom before we hopped on, my dog today was dressed as a little bumblebee, but he's a big dog. So it's pretty funny seeing him wander around looking like a bumblebee. My name is Victoria Dew. I have been working in the field of internal communications for a very, very long time. I think coming up on 17 years, more than 17 years. And I own a firm called Dew Point Communications. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a moment and why we're here to talk about frighteningly good communications today on Halloween. I'll tell you what, until I founded Dew Point Communications, my entire career, both in the US and overseas, was in-house. So for those of you who are joining us and are in in-house roles working within an organization, I know exactly what it's like to be in those roles, and I have been where you are. What we're going to share today is it's a bit about how to navigate some of the challenges and the frightening times that we find in that role. So I have probably seen it all in my time. I've seen mergers and acquisitions and org changes and earthquakes and other natural disasters and chemical spills, built comms functions from the ground up from nothing. I led comms for a defense force once overseas. And I've done newsletters, which can be very scary indeed, can't they? Intranets, of course, town hall decks, workplace accidents. I've done CEO comms and pandemic responses, right? And in fact, I actually wrote a little ebook about my experiences and all the things that I wish I had known a lot earlier in my career. And I know we're going to share that in the chat. You're very welcome to download it. Oh, there it is. Work Smarter, Game-Changing Truths. I wish I had known much earlier in my career. So please feel free to grab that. I hope it's helpful. I'll tell you a little bit about what it is that we do at Dew Point Communications. And when I do, it will all make sense why we're here talking about frighteningly good comms. Did I do that wrong? There we go. So we're a woman-owned boutique consulting firm. We're headquartered in Boston with a hub in Los Angeles. We work with clients all over the world. Our clients are based here in North America, in Europe, and Asia Pacific. And amongst our team, we have experience in more than 20 industries. So we see the inside of a lot of organizations all over the world. And so whatever it is that you are working on, whatever it is that you are facing, I promise you, we've been there and we get you. Today, we're here to help you, give you some top tips to help you navigate some of the things that are top of mind. So please do put things in the chat and ask questions, and we're going to have time for questions and answers afterwards. We've worked with some of the biggest brands in the world, high growth startups, privately held mid-market companies, nonprofits, and all kinds of organizations in between. Some of the ways that we support our clients. We do a lot of communications leadership coaching. One of the best things I ever did was get a coaching certification. And I always thought that I would just work with executives. But in fact, what I've learned is a lot of internal comms professionals really benefit from having a coach by their side day in, day out, month in, month out, and that we are able to help our clients make a lot of progress both in their careers and their functional roles in their careers. We do a lot of strategic advisory and counsel. We call this helping our clients to move the chess pieces across the board. So just taking that break and being able to think more strategically about how all the pieces of our roles connect, so that, again, a secret tip, one of the ways that we get capacity back is by figuring out how to work smarter. And it's really fun for us to help people do that. We do a lot of speaking and training and facilitation, all kinds of workshops. This time of year, I'll tell you, we're very busy doing 2024 planning workshops and then quarterly workshops all year round. We do a lot of workshops in terms of how to work in a different way, how to help whole teams to really approach their organizations, increase their influence and impact. And of course, we also offer traditional strategic consulting services, EVP, strategic planning, and building employee experience functions. So I don't know, I think I have the best job in the world. One of the other really fun things that we do is we have a community of practice. Oops, I lost it. A community of practice, the Greenhouse Internal Comms Brain Trust. And this is training, coaching, and community for emerging internal comms leaders. And I know we've got the link to that in the chat. This is an amazing community. It's like in real time. Obviously, we have a digital platform as well, but we meet almost every week, an incredible cohort coming together almost every week to really talk about some of the problems that we're having and kind of harness the wisdom of the group to help make progress. So if that's of interest as well, especially if you're looking at end of year professional development budget, which is about to expire, which let's face it, can be pretty scary in and of itself. Please feel free to find out more about it, get in touch, and you're welcome to join us. Okay, now I'm going to stop talking about me and our organization, and I want to talk about frighteningly good internal communications. So let's be honest. There are functional roles, but the world is a pretty scary place these days, and I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that there's a lot of very, very scary things going on in the world right now. But your internal comms doesn't have to be one of them. And so today we're going to talk about some of the ways that what we're seeing, some of the biggest trends that we see with our clients and in the organizations we work with, and give you some ways to make things just a little bit easier and less alarming. But that can be hard to do. Now, here are some of the biggest trends that we see among internal comms professionals. And I want to see in the chat if any of these resonate for you. First of all, let's be honest, absolute overwhelm, right? There's really only so many 24 hours in a day, and it can be a lot. And it can be a lot every day. So we see folks that are really just always in overwhelm, always just trying to keep up, and always feeling like they're in that game of whack-a-mole, right? We see that constant change makes feeling like planning impossible. We're always just trying to keep our head above water, and that can be it can be defeating, right? We see business with shiny object syndrome. Don't forget, we're not the only ones who are really grappling with an accelerating pace of change, both in the world and the technologies we're using. And businesses and our leaders are also really trying to keep up with that and figure out how to stay one step ahead. I promise you, they need our support to do that. But sometimes it can feel like, yep, I can see in the chat, we've got some folks doing that. That are dealing with some of this. Yes, especially if you're a tiny team in a very large organization. If we've got any comms teams of one, internal comms teams of one, very scary indeed. But sometimes it can feel like the business is always chasing the next thing and we're just trying to keep up. And if that is you, you're not alone. Don't worry. Isolation, sometimes whether you are a comms team of one, whether you're a comms team of one, or even if you have a big team, sometimes it feels like it's you against the world. And that can be very scary too. It can feel like you're working in a vacuum. I'll tell you, one of these reasons why I love the brain trust and why our community loves it is it's that chance to come together and be like, I'm not alone in all this, right? A team of 8 with 13,000. Sheesh, that's a lot. Yes. Just one. I know it's a lot, but don't worry. You're not alone. We're all here. Okay. There's lots of things. There's lots of things going on, lots of assets and tactics and a lot of activity. But what is it really amounting to? Are we really actually making progress? And that can feel overwhelming. And sometimes, and let's face it, we're in a funny time in the world and in history, and our organizations in the pandemic and return to office or not. But our organizations, many of them, to get philosophical, are kind of caught between the past and the future. There's the way we always did things in the before times and where we're headed. And we are sort of in this like in between time where everyone is trying to figure out what that is and what that looks like. Does that sound about right? Does that resonate with people's experiences? In a moment, I'm going to ask you a little bit more about what it is that your art is top of mind for you. So then on top of all of this, it just got harder because Q4 is the spookiest season of the year. Am I right? First of all, we've had these rapidly approaching end of year deadlines. Budgets and planning. As I said, we do a lot of planning, 2024 planning for this time of year for how teams and organizations are going to really make the most of 2024 and finally leapfrog ahead of that whack-a-mole game. But again, that forces us to think about what's coming up next when we've got so much, day to day that we're still in the middle of doing and milestones and deadlines we're trying to hit. Yep, I see that is something. Hitting those key milestones. Scarily positioned holidays. Let's be honest. Now, for those of us in the US, would you ever, if you were going to plan a year, would you ever put Thanksgiving and Christmas so close together? Like it makes no sense. So just as we're starting to get momentum in Q4, we have this time in November where everything stops. And then we're supposed to ramp back up and make this final sprint. It is a very unfortunately positioned timing here in the US, different in other parts of the world. But here, it is pretty alarming. And then there's life in general, because in and amongst those scarily positioned holidays are a lot of things that we're supposed to be doing. Today, you're probably, many of you may be figuring out taking your kids trick-or-treating, or you may be frantically sewing little sequins back on a Frozen costume right now, right? So it can all be a lot. Back to holidays means overtime at work. Yes, back to back. Exactly. It's a lot. So let me ask you, what if it didn't have to be that way? What if it could be? Do we have any Hocus Pocus fans? The movie Hocus Pocus. Do we have any fans here? I love that movie. I love that scene with Sarah Jessica Parker. She's kind of my favorite. No snow yet. Okay, good. One Hocus Pocus fan. Thanks, Mark. Okay, thanks. Oh, good. I feel better. So remember that scene in Hocus Pocus when Sarah Jessica Parker is like, amok, amok, amok. And she's all excited. And she kind of like has this way about her that's like, I don't know, she just kind of rolls with it, and her sisters are kind of intense. And she's just sort of always happy and lets things kind of roll out, off her back, right? Good. I'm glad it's not just me who sits around alternating between Hocus Pocus and the Barbie movie. Thank you, Molly. But what if it could be more like that? You could feel a little more like that and a little less like that kind of head down, like always sighing, sort of beleaguered internal comms professional. What if just for a moment, let's imagine that was possible, okay? We're going to suspend disbelief just for the rest of this webinar. So today we're going to share a magic spell with you for a great 2024. We're going to share 3 key areas of focus and 3 tips and tricks for each. And it may seem like witchcraft, but it is really just good, solid internal comms. You're wearing your Sanderson's t-shirt today. Oh, I wish I had one of those. I should have worn mine. I should have gotten one to wear today. We talk to a lot of great and really incredible internal comms professionals every week. Certainly we see them in the Brain Trust, and I'll tell you, they're just like incredible. We just always hang up from those calls feeling so inspired by that group and in our clients. And so this is what they tell us, folks that we talk to who are doing the things that we do. This is what they tell us are their top priorities going into 2024. And I'd love to see in the chat, we're going to do a poll in a moment. And I want to see which of these is top for you as well. 1, manager comms, unlocking and unleashing manager comms. Finally, getting that, cracking that code, right, is top of mind for folks and things that are big priorities. listening programs, listening strategies, and really championing the voice of the employee so that it can inform our strategies, what we're doing and how we're working. And getting onboarding right. If I had a dollar for every time I hear about getting that we've got to figure out onboarding, getting those first days, weeks, months of a new employee's tenure right, so that they can hit the ground running and thrive, it'd be amazing. So I'd love to hear which of these is top of mind for you: unlocking and unleashing manager comms, listening and championing the voice of the employee, getting onboarding right, or something else. And you can just pop the polls there. I'm going to have a look. Let's see. Getting onboarding right. A lot of listening. Yeah. What else? I can't see what the other is. That's okay. We'll look at it later. Listening is a big one. We'll take just a few more moments here to see what comes in. All right. Listening and championing the voice of the employee is the clear front runner for what is number one. And I'm very excited to see, in the chat, wait, that's where we're going to see. Hang on. Making comms more effective across the board to garner more interest and excitement. Recruitment and retention, yes, indeed. All three. Yes. It really is kind of a DEI comms, of course. It really is kind of a trifecta, because when we get all these pieces together, right, we really are cooking with gas. Leadership on board with a long-term comms strategy. Although who knows what long-term is anymore, right? It could be, they say now that 3 years is the maximum horizon that you should be doing kind of long-term planning, because it's so hard to know what will happen there. And creating community. Excellent. Okay, I love these. So let's dive in. Communication softwares and strategies. Yes, indeed. All right. So to get through Q4, the very spookiest season of the year, we will all need to stop, take a deep breath, clear out the cobwebs, and hollow out some time in your calendar to be truly strategic. You have all made the first step in doing that, because you're here with us on a very busy Tuesday morning, afternoon, evening. So congratulations, you're doing great. Let's start with unlocking and unleashing manager communications. Let's face it, without our managers, we're all pretty much wandering around like it's the zombie apocalypse, right? Managers have the ability to be one of the most powerful communications channels and two-way communications channels, advocates and influencers that we have in our trick-or-treat bag. But managers are not just leaders, they're real life live people too. And we often call managers the frozen middle, but you know what? I think that sometimes it's because we treat them like the abominable snowman. And it's our job as internal communications to thaw them and bring them back to life. And the magic of manager comms starts way before tactics and toolkits. It starts in how you approach this work in the first place. So I have to say, and not to scare people, but if you get this part wrong, you may have a hard time putting the black cat back in the bag, and you may find yourself whistling in the graveyard. So we want to talk a little bit about that not all managers are alike. And it's important to segment them just like you would any other audience. Let's face it, we often treat managers as a whole layer, like they're all one, right? And I think that's where we miss a trick. Because when we segment them like we would in any other audience, we start to really understand the differences, both the demographics and the psychographics. We can create personas for them, just like we do in some of the other work. This is something we do a lot with clients, right? When they're developing EVPs, when you're developing a comm strategy, you may have some of those personas already lurking around. You may have some in HR, or other parts of the business may have some personas as well. That you can draw on. But before you dive into the deep end of the manager pool, do take some time to stop and create personas. Now, one thing that is I think interesting when we're creating personas and when we're trying to segment audiences and understand them is very often um, it's people look at generations, right? Or they look at different facets of a persona or employee tenure. But sometimes role type can have more to do with the differences in how people like to be communicated with and how we can best connect and communicate with our employees and our managers. The kinds of roles, right? So, for example, are they at their desk? Are they deskless? Are they in a technical role versus a corporate function? So, depending on what their role is in the organization, it will have a lot to do with the best way to create content for them, the best platforms and channels to use with them, and the best way to approach connecting those managers. Another thing to remember about getting your unleashing and unlocking and unleashing manager communications is to really map out that employee life cycle. And it's going to require, oops, I'm going to skip ahead. It's going to require doing some homework, right? And again, stopping and thinking through some of these pieces. So your managers are not the undead. They were not born managers. So we want to understand them as people and where they are on their journey, both through this organization and in their broader career cycle. What are their drivers? What's important to them? You can use data to understand them. You may have existing in your digital platforms, right? You may have existing data on on how they're using communications, right? Use what you already have. And this is where listening starts. You can do focus groups, roundtables. We do a lot of stakeholder consultation. It's not enough just to do an engagement survey and take what you hear from the engagement survey. You got to dig deeper, like at least 6 feet deep, I'll say. Look at the document what you learn. We tell our people all the time, measure once, use many times. If you're going to go to all that trouble to dig deep, make sure that you find a lot of ways to use that. It's going to help you in your segmentation and creating personas. A lot of the data you're looking for is hiding in plain sight. When we do this work with clients, one of the things we like to do is give them a really thorough insights report that honestly becomes kind of like a spell book for them. It tells them all these things that we found in our research and our discovery and our consultation so that they can take it and they can apply it to other things they're working on. So start to think about how you can really measure once, use many times, and apply that to their whole employee life cycle so that you understand what's most important to them. The last trick I want to share is in starting small. Sometimes this can feel overwhelming. It can feel like a giant haunted house that you've got to navigate, but you don't have to boil the ocean or solve the entire problem at once. You can pilot either a low risk, something that's low risk, or a very high value segment of your managers first, right? So either a segment of managers or a group or an organization where you are really struggling with retention, or where it can be easy to test things on because they are lower risk, right? And you have a bunch of allies and advocates in that part of the organization, so that when you go to test your toolkits or you understand our new program or roundtables or some ways of listening, applying new trainings, you're going to get really good quality feedback quickly. And then you can listen to that feedback and you can iterate, and sometimes in real time. Good. Oh, thank you. I did work on my Halloween language. Thank you. I'm glad you like it. Okay, let's talk about the next tip in our magic spell book that we have here. And that is listening and championing the voice of the employee. So we've all been in this position, right? Sometimes as an employee, it can feel like we're in one of those nightmares that we're screaming into the void and no one can hear you. And all too often, when I talk to organizations and I ask them how they listen to employees, I get this dead like stare, right? And they don't know what to say. And then they think quickly and they say, oh, well, we have an annual engagement survey, so we listen to employees. Sometimes they say, we do an engagement survey every 2 or 3 years, right? Well, you will have The Walking Dead by then if you're waiting 2 or 3 years to listen to your employees. So think about it. How would you How would you like it if your significant other, partner in your life, someone that's in a very important relationship to you, if they just asked you once a year or sent you a survey once a year on how they were doing as a partner? Your home would probably start to become a house of horrors pretty quickly, right? Because no one likes that. No one wants to be asked once in a while how things are going. And then of course, you don't have an intranet, just Slack and email. Well, I bet I know where you can find an intranet. But as internal comms pros, we have the ability to not only listen, but truly champion that voice of the employee and help our stakeholders to understand why frequent, regular, consistent listening is basically the equivalent of those full-size candy bars on Halloween. You ever go to those houses where you don't just get the mini treats, but they give you the whole like full-size Snickers bar? That is what we want to be to our employees. Okay. In an ideal world, you would have an ongoing listening program. And these are ones we work with our clients to develop just this very regular cadence. And it doesn't have to be huge, but it does feel like a very ongoing. Employees know what to expect. They know they're going to be asked for their opinions. And spoiler alert, they know that that something's going to be done when they are asked. But even if you're not there yet, don't worry. You can still make a great start. There are lots of ways that you can listen. So sometimes we do focus groups and we seek specific client feedback. So let's say that you have a very specific, something very specific that you're working on. Maybe it is that you're launching a new intranet and you really want feedback on how you can make it great, what employees are looking for, where they have friction in your current platforms. That's one place in very specific initiatives that you can start to do some listening. It also starts to create that two-way communication. Roundtables are one of our favorite ways to do that. And that's where you get together a smallish group of employees to co-create solutions to a specific challenge or opportunity. And that can be really fun because it asks people to not only tell you what's wrong, but you're asking them to help come up with a solution. What will be the improvement that will be most valuable and relevant for them? And then, of course, we always love the full-size Snicker bar. We all want to be the full-size Snicker bar of our employees' lives. And then one of our other favorites is just good old-fashioned stakeholder interviews, right? We call it, sometimes when we're trying to figure out strategy or trying to understand the broader context of our business. I tell people, I'm like, you can coffee it out of your stakeholders. If you have enough coffees with stakeholders and do enough interviews, right, you will learn things that help you connect the dots to create that bigger picture that you're looking to understand. And it is part of listening, just for that voice of the employee. Sometimes, honestly, I tell you, it's easier sometimes for someone to come in from the outside to do that. It can be like someone, like when you're on the inside, it can feel like you're trapped inside that house. And sometimes it's helpful when those trick-or-treaters come in from the outside and ring the bell and your stakeholders are like, welcome, here's your candy bar. The next one is that I will talk about is listen before you leap. Oh wait, hey, these are going too fast. So you don't have to be a headless horseman. You can consult on key initiatives. If you have a program or initiative that you're already doing, wrap some listening around it. As I said, maybe it's an intranet, maybe it's town halls, maybe you're in the process of looking at new capabilities or a learning and development program. Looking at those key audience segments will help you to not only figure out what the best solution is, but how to drive adoption. For example, an intranet or town halls. So look at what you're already doing and then don't reinvent the wheel, right? So you don't have to launch whole new initiatives in order to listen. What if it's just ways to make town halls more interactive? What if it's getting your leaders comfortable inviting feedback? What if it's stopping people in the hall if you're working in an office and asking them for some feedback? What if it's using polls in large meetings like we did here today? There's lots of ways to kind of do listening that don't have to feel like you're boiling the ocean. The last one is don't ghost your employees. When you ask people for their opinions, you got to do something with them. So we always talk about you said, we did. Pay it off for people. We always see people don't get survey fatigue. They get tired of being asked for their opinion and then nothing happening. So make sure you tell them when you do something with the feedback so that they know, so they feel that they have it's validation that their opinions matter. Find a way to let them know what you did. So that's listening and the voice of the employee. A chat and a Kit Kat. I love that. Small coffee groups. You know what else? I love that. We've done book clubs, right? Even with small groups, it's funny. And I don't mean an actual book necessarily, but sometimes it can be like an article, like a Harvard Business Review article, getting small groups together just to talk about something, right, that you've read and be able to have a conversation. It doesn't always have to be just on, something specifically related to the organization. You can find ways to listen and understand employees in more lateral ways as well. That can be really fun. All right, the last component of our spell book here is getting onboarding right. So have you ever started in a new role and it felt like you were in a graveyard? There was no one around to tell you where to go, how to get a laptop, where to park, who your manager was. And you remember that feeling? I call it the new girl blues. You know that feeling when you're starting a new job and someone asks you to do something and you're really excited because like you're new and you want to do it. But like in order to do the one thing, you have 3 questions, right, that you need answered. And then you have to figure out who to even ask those 3 questions to. And you don't even know how to get the answers to the people like that you need the answers to do the one simple thing that you're supposed to do when you're new. And it can feel really debilitating, right? Like, how are you ever going to get this right? And it's not a great way, as we know, for a new hire to experience the organization in their first days, weeks, and months. So there's a few ways that we want to, that we can start to get onboarding right. Now, as communications, we have an important role to play, but we're not alone in that. So it's really important that we work cross-functionally, that we work with our HR partners and our partners in IT, right? And our digital experience partners, our partners in facilities, people manage our property and help us to understand like where the swipe card comes from, where people park, where they eat lunch, right? All those things. So one of the ways that we can increase our influence and impact is where we have an opportunity to kind of create a coven, assemble a coven, this coalition of the willing, all the stakeholders who play a really important part in getting onboarding right. We as communications do have an opportunity in many organizations to really be the catalysts for that, getting that magic spell right, that potion for our people when they're first starting. And so then getting that spell right. So HR, DEI, ops, comms, get everyone on board and rowing in the same direction. Develop a playbook. Once you have that coven assembled, get it. You capture all the things that you're working on, all that magic spell book that you have for what a great employee experience looks like when people start, and you can own the playbook, all the pieces of that puzzle. Update your recipe. Let other people in that cross-functional group contribute. Everyone has a really important part to play in getting onboarding right. And you can run your own science experiments. So you can find a guinea pig and so let's say you have a new team member starting, right? We had someone do this recently. They had a new team member starting and they didn't feel like they had a great onboarding process in place already. They asked that new team member in their comms team to document their experience so that they could find both what was working well and what was working less well. They were able to capture that voice of the employee so that then when that new hire was starting to work on building the onboarding process with their coven, with that cross-functional coalition, they had a lot of real-time data and insight that they had collected that could be that group could help work to improve. So you can find out firsthand what might not be working. And that's something that you can do no matter where you are in the organization and no matter what the dynamics are around onboarding. I'm going to check the chat, see if we've got Q&A coming up. You're the guinea pig. I love it. New Girl Blues. Excellent. Cool. So let's bring it all together, shall we? Because I'm really excited to get to Q&A. We've got such a wonderful group, and I know that we're going to have a really fun conversation about this. Okay, let's bring it all together. Here we go. 1, put the employee at the heart of everything you do. Remember, your people are not the walking dead, right? These are the people that are here to power our organizations. So put them at the heart of everything you do. Whether they're a manager, someone being affected by a change or a layoff, make time to connect with them while their heart is still beating. Work together. Get all the goblins and witches, ghosts and ghouls together. No one function can do any of this on its own anymore. And the only way to truly get ahead and claw back some of that capacity, find more hours in the day, which we all need, is to work cross-functionally, break down those silos, and truly collaborate. And the third one is to look outside your industry for inspiration. Again, earlier I talked about that feeling of isolation, right? This is something, honestly, we see in our brain trust. Is one of the parts that's magical about it is that we have people from all different industries, all different kinds of organizations. And they find when they come together that they've more, even if it's someone from a very different kind of company or a different part of the world, they find they have more in common and there's things they can learn from each other that may be different from what they see right in their own organization or in their own industry. So start to look more broadly where you can find new ideas for old challenges, right? So those are the big tips I have for you in creating your magic spell book. And so I'm going to pause, and I would love to go to Q&A now.
All right, great. Thanks, Victoria. I think that was awesome. And thanks to everybody in the chat for your banter and all the wonderful comments and discussions. Hope everybody got some good networking, got some good conversations out of that. And we had some questions in there. So the first one from Kelly, will the deck be shared? It will be, along with the recording of the webinar, so no worries there. Victoria, we have a question from Amy, where she feels like every department assumes she has a crystal ball, and she wants to know, how does she encourage people to come to her with news rather than her having to chase and nag constantly, like an old. It's funny.
It's funny, isn't it? That's like kind of this one of the scary parts is that everyone thinks that comms knows everything, but sometimes that isolation, feeling like you're kind of all alone, can be kind of overwhelming. So part of it, I think, is to figuring out how you become that oracle, right? That people expect you to be. So one part of it is looking at those cross-functional relationships. One of the secret ways that I love is finding stakeholders, key stakeholders, leaders that, because really what we're looking at here, what we're looking at is to how we build social capital, influence, and impact. If you think about it, we throw around the idea of influencing without authority a lot. And I know sometimes that can feel overwhelming. If you think about it, only the CEO really has the authority to influence, right, fully. Everyone else has to influence without authority. And so that means finding those allies, finding those friendlies, amplifying the good work they're doing, right? And then so that other people see what's working for them, and they want more of that. That's how we start to build that social capital. That's how we find out more about what's going on, and people come to us in a more consistent way, right? So one of the ways we do that, an example is someone has a project that's going really well. Well, you find a way to either showcase it in a town hall, an intranet article on it, an interview, a interview Q&A in a newsletter, something that amplifies that great work, showcases them, makes them look good. And that can help sort of build out your profile so that people come to you when they have things like this. Like to do for us. I hope that answers your question. Yeah, Sterling, last to know. It's like chicken and the egg, right?
So actually, it's a good dovetail to this next question here from Poppy. Do you have some creative tips for town halls? We'd love to see employee engagement rise, get to a place where people are coming to them because they want to shout out about team achievements initiatives.
Yeah. Part of this is where listening comes in, finding out what is important to them and building in some of that engagement. So it could be polls, it could be short video segments that you've done, like filming a day in the life, right, with someone maybe on the front lines. If they're a deskless worker, somehow you're bringing that voice of the employee in, using it to curate the town hall so that every town hall feels like it has a sort of, it sounds funny, but like a narrative arc, right? We're there to tell a story, some of the leadership communications, but every town hall feels themed, is about a specific topic or theme, not just a bunch of updates, right? But that we're using it to tell a story in 60 minutes. Or 90 minutes. So thinking about maybe it's again that voice of the employee bringing in specific perspectives, interaction. I love small groups. If we're doing it in person, doing small group breakouts, you can do almost mini roundtables where you can get diverse groups of 4 or 5 together to answer a specific question and do a share out. It's a way it takes, you can do it in sort of 15 minutes where you just create a little more movement in that town hall, so it feels much less like if people are just sitting there waiting to, being told and then wandering back and feeling like that was not a super great use of their time.
Great. Thank you, Victoria. We got another question here from Elizabeth. What is your best tip for getting senior team on board with comm strategy? And she's also saying great presentation, which I agree.
Oh, thank you. I love this question. So here's the thing. I think sometimes we spend a lot of time as communications professionals interested in our thing, which is communications, right? And really, we're here to solve business problems. And your senior team is really not interested in communications. This is one of the things I talk about in the ebook. And I know we've got the link there in the chat, which is it's called Work Smarter, 5 great tips or something, game-changing tips that I wish I'd known much earlier in my career. And so please do grab it because I actually write a bit about this in there. One of the things is that they are there to solve business problems, not communications problems. So thinking about, especially when you're developing comm strategy, it is really not about communications. It is about how you use communications to solve business challenges. So the way to get your senior team on board is to make sure that we're telling the story about that line of sight. Here are the things that you've said are most important to you, right? And usually it comes down to, depending on your industry, it's usually some version of the bottom line, or in nonprofits or public sector, achieving the outcomes, right, for our stakeholders that we're there to, that we're in the business of making happen. And then telling the story back to, because we communicate with our people better in this way, we're able to improve recruitment and retention. And we don't stop there, because why does recruitment and retention matter? It matters because we have the right people in the right roles at the right time to help achieve these business goals that you've said, right? The bottom line, getting this new product to market, growing this segment over here, helping to serve this population, improving patient outcomes, whatever it is that matters to them, so that we're always connecting the dots all the way through why this newsletter is what really achieves contributes to achieving the big picture.
Awesome. Thank you for that. I think we have time for maybe 2 to 3 more, and then we'll wrap it up. Got a question from Veronica. When you refer to manager comms, are you speaking about communicating with your managers or helping your managers communicate with their teams?
Ooh, great question. Both. Both, because if you think about it, right, there's communicate with our managers and understand. That's what I mean when managers are people too, So part of it is, how do we support that employee segment themselves so that they are able to achieve the things that are important to them, right? Their own career goals, their own learning and development, them being more comfortable and confident, having, a lot of time we work with managers as coach, right? And moving much more into helping managers develop their coaching skills so that they can better support their teams. So part of it is how we communicate and create that engagement with them to give them the skills, tools that they need to thrive. And how we help them to then in turn communicate better with their teams. So part of it is both then also using them as a communications channel. So we know that a lot of where things get lost in translation is because people want to hear information firsthand from their managers, and they want to they need it contextualized. They want to know, what does this have to do with me? Why is this org change? Why is this thing that's happening? Tell me what that has to do with my day-to-day role and what you're asking me to do differently, right? So partly why why managers are such a powerful channel is that they have the ability, and when we empower them and give them the tools, context they need, they then can create context and meaning for their teams and say, so this big change at headquarters, what that means for us is that we aren't looking at reductions in our team right now, but we will need to shift the way we work and increase performance because we're starting to move more towards this area of the business. So for you here in this role, these will be the things that are most important for you to focus on in the next quarter, right? So that we can, as a team, be a strong performing team, so that we can help this org change that's happening to mean something, be effective, and we'll all be better off for it. Does that answer your question?
I will assume yes.
Okay. It's why the manager comms thing is like one of the most important things that we can get right, because it's so powerful in really influencing behavior change. Yeah.
Now that makes a lot of sense. Okay, I think we have time for maybe one or two more. We have one with a lot of votes here from Emily, where she mentioned that a lot of people come to assistance for supporting their project with limited number of resources and predetermined priority list. How do you tell a group / department their project isn't special or priority important enough to support?
How do you tell sorry, I can't see the bottom of it. How do you tell them that their project isn't special?
Right.
I'm pausing because there's so many I can think of so many times, so many different functions that come and they think that they everyone has their message that they want to get out, right? And again, it's very important to them. Kind of like we talked about how with senior leaders, to us, the comms is important. And so we want it to be important to them. And really it's not, right? What's important to them is their business problem. Similarly, all those other functions, and very often they're corporate functions, sometimes they're parts of the business, come to us and their thing is very, very important to them, right? Well, one way is that is asking them, is part of it is helping them to understand how to be better communicators themselves, right? I always say there's a difference. Everyone is a communicator. We are communication professionals. So we have specific skill sets and tools and these tips, right? And these magic spells that we have that we can help the business so that they can become better communicators, so that their thing, and whether or not it's important or not, that has a way to, that will be an audience, there will be someone that it is important to, and we can help them shape it and position it so that it is the right message to the right people at the right time in the right way. So one of the things we like to do is helping people, and I think of some functions, but I won't mention them, that very often they'll send a very long email and it's all about their thing and their process. And right at the bottom of that email has the call to action, right? One of the easiest things we can do is cut and paste it and put it at the top. But taking people through that no feel do grid, and if you don't know that, if you don't have a way of doing no feel do, which is asking people, whatever the thing is, what do you want the recipient of this message to know about it? What do you want them to feel? And what do you want them to do? What's the action you want them to take? And asking them to think through some of those steps with you or on their own is one thing that will help them to crystallize their message. You may find out what is important about it. And the other thing is just help working with them, the what's in it for me, and helping them to understand that that for the right audience, what will be different because they send this message, right? What is the right channel, the right time, the right place for it to be effective?
Great, thank you. All right, we got time for one more, so we'll just go to the top of the list here. Got a question from Missy. Do you have tips for balancing manager and non-manager employee communications, So non-managers don't feel a divide, like you don't matter if you're not a leader, without using individual contributor language.
Oh, interesting. What a great question. It's funny. It's actually, this is a very Halloween one. Sometimes I talk about people leaders, and but people who don't work in a corporate context think I say people eaters. So I've had to stop saying it, and now I just say leaders of people so that it doesn't sound like people eaters. I should have worked a people eater pun into my presentation. I can't believe I didn't think of that. So thank you. Balancing manager and non-manager communication. I think it comes right back to segmentation, right? It is the right message to the right person at the right time. And I hear you about the individual contributor. I think there's a question, a sort of philosophical question about what is wrong with being an individual contributor, right? What is it culturally that has made it that somehow if you're not a manager, then you're not something, then you're less than, right? I think many people, and I think part of it has to do with normalizing that being an individual, not everyone wants to be or should be a leader of people. That being a very high performing individual contributor is a really important and valuable part of the organization. So I think it comes down to segmentation and understanding that I think rebranding, right, from not individual contributor, but you in this role, what they are, the function they perform, and its contribution to the bigger picture, and helping to frame why that whatever it is they're doing is important in and of itself, and separating out. So it's not managers and non-managers. It's lots of different segments who are contributing to the big picture in different ways.
Great. So unfortunately, we are up against it. I know there's a couple of other questions that came through, so we'll try to answer them via text here. And if we can't, we'll reach back out after the webinar here, and we'll get you some of those answers.
I'm very happy to, please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, ask any other questions, send them through. I'm happy to be helpful if I can. It's been wonderful to be here with you today.
Yeah, no, it's great to have you. It's great to have everybody on the call. Before we all jump off, if anybody's interested in taking a look at our platform for internal communications, our intranet, there should be a little button that pops up there, popped up on my screen here too. Just put in your email, no strings attached. Just get a quick tour of the product and of what we have to offer. Can't hurt, just to kind of see what's out there. Last but not least, we have a webinar coming up on November 16th. Unfortunately, it is not Halloween themed. Maybe we could think about making it Thanksgiving themed, but that's only a US thing, so maybe not. Independent or SharePoint, what's the best internet solution? Having been doing this for quite a while, this comes up a lot, so I'm actually really looking forward to that one as well. So hope everybody can join us. Really appreciated the energy here, and thanks again, Victoria. Thought that was awesome. Here's just some of our, if you want to connect with us on whether Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, or just on our website, there are all of our different mediums. Hope everybody has a happy Halloween. Don't eat too much candy, and hope everybody enjoys. Take care, everybody. Thanks for joining.